Hi, Isabel. Welcome to the show. As we're getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Brian. How are you? Thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. So I'm Isabel Papulias. I am the CMO of MediaFly. We're a sales enablement, technology, and advisory provider. I have been in marketing for 20 plus years. Let's just give a round number. So I'm not completely dating myself.
No carbon testing here.
Exactly. So, and I've been really different aspects of marketing my entire career. I started in quantitative research. I was in the nonprofit sector for a bit, and then I moved on to agencies, both creative as well as media. So really MediaFly is now everything a lot of what I was doing before in marketing plus more. So this is my first gig in-house. I didn't start in marketing though at MediaFly. I actually started in sales. I was in sales for 6 months, and then they asked me to transition and build marketing for the company. So it's been fantastic to take all the knowledge I've accumulated over the last 20 years and build something from the ground up. It's been very, very rewarding.
And I see some other sales gigs in the past as well. Is that accurate?
So it's more like new business. So within the agency world, I mean, we're always selling, right? Yeah. But it's not call it like the typical selling environment where you're, cold outreach and prospecting necessarily, but it's new business. You're always pitching for new business, and you're also looking to grow your existing client accounts.
And what do you like about marketing?
What I like about marketing is that it's so broad.
It is. Yeah.
I consider myself a generalist, and so it's allowed me to just constantly learn. Like, I get to apply what I know well, but I also get to constantly learn more, and it's never ending because marketing keeps evolving. And so, yeah, you'll never enough of an expert. And I also like that it allows me to be a generalist, right? So I love building teams and surrounding myself with the subject matter experts. And I love looking for the problems that I need to solve and setting the priorities, and then let the experts around me, work towards a common goal. Yeah. So that allows me to know, I have to know a little bit about everything in marketing, but it doesn't mean I can't possibly be as good in SEO as my VP of digital is, you know what I mean? And that's okay, but because I don't have to go quite as deep, I can go a lot more broad, which is a lot more interesting to me.
And how do you keep up? Because because once something works, it works for like a nanosecond, and then it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I don't know, I'm going to challenge that a little bit. So how do I keep up? I don't know that I do. I do, I do keep my eye on the goal. That's the thing. And being in marketing, things fly at us constantly, right? And the marketing team is a shared, entity within the organization. So my filter is always, how will this new initiative, request, whatever it may be, how will it serve the objectives that we have, right? And if it doesn't, then we shouldn't do it, right? Part of strategy is deciding what not to do. And that's a hard conversation to have sometimes. But your comment about, things work and then they don't, I think that things don't work for a long time. So but eventually they do. So a lot of what we do in marketing is iterative, and you really have to test and learn. It's incredible how much of that we've had to do on MediaFly. Some things have taken longer than I would have expected. Yeah. And you come with best practices. You come with things that have been tried and true, at your past roles, or you're hearing it from peers. But the truth is, you have to benchmark against yourself. It's almost like you're starting over. So you have to try new digital tactics and field tactics and whatever for MediaFly. And then you have to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then you do more of what works.
Yeah.
Right. And that it just takes time to go through that process.
And how can you tell if it works?
Well, I think it's results, right? And it's how you're measured. So in our case, and I think that's for most CMOs these days, It's really pipeline. It's pipeline
Right.
generation, sourced and influenced. I
Okay.
mean, I know, yes, there's still the MQL, and that's fine. That's the very top of the funnel, but I can't imagine there's any CMO right now that's being measured on leads, right? So it's really about pipeline generation and revenue.
Okay. And I think the hardest part of what I hear from people in marketing is that everyone's got an opinion about what you're doing.
No.
You know, I can't tell you the
Well,
number of
that
sales meetings I've been in where we're talking about the design of the website.
well, I think you actually just described the morning I just had.
Yeah.
Yes, and that goes back to the deciding not to do, right? What not to do. It's hard. It's one of the hardest things. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not, you know, I, yeah. And there's no, I don't have a magic answer. I think it's, you have to pick your battles. I think you have to obviously earn the trust of the executive team, and your peers. And that also takes time, right? But at the same time, so the flip side of this is people need to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? As well. And they need to, they should want to collaborate and align with you. So I'm going to digress a little bit, but we talk a lot about marketing and sales alignment. And it's true, right? Obviously we need that, and it's become a bit of a buzzword. And when we think about sales and marketing alignment, we talk a lot about process and technology and common objectives and all those things. But at the end of the day, the very first thing that needs to happen for sales and marketing alignment is you need to have two leaders that want to align.
Yeah, they can talk to each other.
It starts with the relationship, like the human relationship.
Yeah.
If I think I know all my shit and you're not going to bring anything to the table, then it's going to be marketing sitting in its ivory tower, doing stuff in the corner that nobody knows about, right? That's not going to go over well. Same with sales. If you think you have it all figured out on your own, it's the same problem. So I'm going to have to give you the benefit of the doubt that you have things to bring to the table, and vice versa. Otherwise, what are we doing here? And I know it sounds very simplistic, but I've seen that lacking so many times. And then you're trying to fix it with process and technology and whatever else, right? That's for me, that's number one.
And that's it. And I think the next part of that is you got to have a CEO that wants that to happen, instead of pointing the two kids against each other.
Yes.
To see who's the strongest or who's the most powerful, because that causes a lot of the problems.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up, and I often talk about the role of the CEO in setting up the CMO for success.
Yeah.
Right, and because and really all the other executives, but obviously we're talking marketing today, because there's so much also confusion about the CMO role, in the sense that it is so broad and it does vary by organization depending on organizational needs. And so the CMO and the CEO need to be very clear about what's the expectation. Like, you are CEO, what do you want out of your CMO, right? What are the goals? What does success look like? But also how do you want to work? How do you expect the CMO to work within the organization? So, and being very transparent about that, I think is important, for both sides. For the CEO to know that they're going to get what they need out of their CMO, and frankly, if you're a CMO interviewing for a job, you should be asking all these hard questions to make sure you're stepping into something that is, setting you up for success, not failure.
Right, because I think every CMO thinks they understand marketing, and sales, but if they have an engineering background and never done either of those, how well can they understand it?
Exactly. And ironically, and I don't have the statistic off the top of my head, but I've seen it. I think the majority of CEOs come from either finance, right? Or in our case, in the tech space,
Engineering.
the engineering side.
Yeah.
And so yes, it doesn't mean that they don't understand sales and marketing, but they don't understand it as well, right? So then you
right.
dabble.
Yeah. They might just think it's a great Super Bowl ad that will knock the business out out of the park, and or that it's going to one trade show, or it's getting a bunch of leads, right?
Right.
Instead of understanding, yeah, there's branding, and then there's, lead generation, demand gen,
Right.
and
Right. And
understanding,
and the brand. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
and understanding who you're selling to, who has the problem you solve, and who cares about it.
Yeah, and understanding what they actually need. So it's easy to make assumptions, right? And all of us within an organization, right, some assumptions about what we think the customers really need, what should drive their product innovation, how we should message out, right, what the barriers are. But the reality is we live in our own bubble, right? It's confirmation bias.
Yep.
And that's always very much on my radar. And you don't get to really know until you talk to your customers and your prospects, like do one-on-one interviews and all those things, right? So, but you said something about brand and demand, and yeah, that's an interesting one, because especially in the startup environment, right, where you're pushing for aggressive growth, it's easy to fall in to prioritize demand over the brand. And I can say that because I did it. I feel like the brand has been neglected somewhat, because there's been so much pressure to deliver demand. And the unfortunate part is a strong brand is going to drive demand too, right? So they're not separate. They're a little separate, but they're also related. So definitely putting a lot more energy now behind the brand. But that's also a tug of war internally. And I don't believe the brand has always been a challenging conversation, because you can't always measure it too effectively, right?
You can't
demand
measure
is
it.
like demand is like pipeline. Da, da, da.
Right.
So it's challenging to prove internally that, you know what, we need to not be distracted away from the brand, and we need to work on the brand, and that's not always an easy discussion.
And how do you manage that conversation with the VP of sales? Because they don't care about the brand; they care about leads.
I'll be honest. I'm not really managing that conversation anymore. I'm just doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think, as long as you're driving the demand. So this is the thing about the trust. Yeah. At the end of the day, the proof is in the numbers. So if you can show marketing source pipeline and marketing influence pipeline, then you can move on to other things like the brand. Like at least that's been my experience. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but I think that, again, tech space, startup environment, it makes sense to me. You're going to focus on demand first, and you need to prove that marketing can do that. And then in some ways you get permission to do
what you really think will work. Now, in a startup environment where the budgets are pretty tight, how do you determine your mix?
Based on what works, so in our case, I mean, you measure, right? You have to measure where your ROI is coming from in terms of tactics and campaigns. In our case, we have a strong demand gen engine, so we're heavy digital. We're a lot less reliant on field, for example. Yeah. And that's not to say that field shouldn't be stronger for us. I think there's a lot more things that we can do better there. But interestingly enough, given the situation we're in right now with COVID and the impact on business and the remote work, remote selling situation, we're in sales enablement, right? It's been the fact that we're so, I will say, almost over reliant on digital has helped us. Yeah. Because we didn't have to make the pivot that a lot of other organizations had to make. The aha moment I had when we had a sort of like crisis management discussion was that we didn't need to reinvent the wheel, because we had a strong inbound engine, based on digital. We had, we were already doing monthly webinars. We've been doing them for a very long time. They're very successful for us. we had a freemium offer already, right? So a lot of the digital tactics were already in place. We had to tweak, and we had to tweak the message to be more contextual within what's going on. But it's not like so much of our ROI was coming out of field, for example, that we lost all the trade shows, and now we were throwing our hands in the air.
Yeah, definitely. And when you say digital, what's working digitally? Ads or content or? So
ads and content and search, right? So display, search, and content, and they all go hand in hand because we're serving content through ads, so not just from social media, but and organic, and specifically, so Google Ads, so the retargeting is working really well for us, and lookalike targeting, right? So based on the ICP and the folks that come on our website and convert, we want more of the same. What's also working very well for us is ABM. So we use an ABM technology, 6 Sense. And so we're also doing display ads through 6 Sense, right? And that's highly, highly targeted.
Yep.
And through 6 Sense, what we're also getting, so aside from the ads, is the in-market signals. So we get to see the companies that are truly in market based on the signals that they're exhibiting.
Yep.
And then we use that for prospecting.
Okay.
So that's been very promising for us as well.
And are the SDRs or BDRs, are they under you or are they under sales?
So the BDRs are under me.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we work very closely with sales, obviously.
Good. And what percentage of their time or hours is spent outbound, cold versus inbound?
For the BDRs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been very inbound heavy because, again, we have a strong digital demand gen engine. Yeah. So it's really, I don't know that I can give you a percentage, probably like 80-20 is 80% inbound, 20% outbound. However, we already knew that I wanted that to be more balanced, right? So we had started to put more emphasis on outbound, especially because of the ABM and the in-market signals that we're getting, right? And then when COVID happened, it accelerated the outbound priorities because you need to go after those fundraisers. The inbound has slowed down. Not in terms of volume. The volume has actually increased because I think people are, home and they have more time to do research, whatnot. But the quality has dropped. Yeah. And there's no question, talking to other CMOs, that sort of like outbound is where it's at right now. So definitely have shifted more towards outbound now.
And what I hear,
right now, it's probably more like 50-50.
Yeah. In your space, sales enablement. Now, who is the persona you're going after? Is it sales enablement or ops or leadership?
So it's sales, marketing, and then within sales, you have sales enablement or sales ops.
Yeah.
So typically, it's ideally leadership, right? Typically, the entry point tends to be more marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably 75-25, 75 marketing, 25 sales. It tends to be marketing, but in any case, whoever is our entry point has to bring the other one to the table.
Right.
Because both sides need to be aligned, otherwise they're not going to use it, right? So because they get different benefits out of it. So the benefit for marketing is that they get to push the sales collateral to the reps, right, in a way that it's a lot more accessible. And but most importantly, they have visibility into how that sales collateral is used by reps, which reps,
if used,
and whether it actually, how it's moving the prospect down the buying cycle, and whether it's closing deals or not.
Yeah. So
marketing gets to optimize the content strategy that way because they're going to stop spending time and money. Marketing spends a lot of money on content. Stop developing content that is not closing deals, right? And then on the sales side, they're a lot more effective in their live conversations with prospects because they get to really have a very customized conversation, right? We're having a conversation, and I'm going to maybe pull the content I have, that's on my fingertips on my iPad, right? Or on the app, based on what we're saying, what you're asking me, right? Or here's a video from a testimonial, or like, oh, let me show you an ROI calculator. Let's calculate how much value, our solution can bring. I'm not throwing up a PowerPoint at you. That's a one size fits all. So there's benefits for both sides. But if marketing brings it in and sales basically doesn't want it, they haven't been a part of the decision, they're probably not going to use it. Then you're just pushing it on them, and vice versa. So it's important to have both of these personas in the decision-making process. If it's sales enablement and sales ops, even better, because they're specialists. IT is actually not so much, surprisingly. They just come in at the end just to really check the box on security, but it's not a target audience for us.
And what's it like being a marketer, marketing to marketing people? You're not an easy crowd.
Oh, I think we're great.
I said easy. Yes, you're great.
All right, fair enough. Well, it's actually, I like it because they speak my language.
Yeah.
And ironically, when I was hired at MediaFly, so I started as a sales rep, right? And I remember saying to the head of sales at the time, and I said, well, not to be shooting myself in the foot, but I said, I don't come from a tech background. I mean, I've had primarily B2B clients. I was on the client service side, and I had primarily tech clients and finance clients, but I wasn't in marketing, ad tech, startups most of my career, which is the more, call it like typical CMO profile, right? For a company like MediaFly. Well, and as a sales rep, and I said, I don't come from tech sales. And he said, well, that's precisely why we like you, because you actually, the persona we're selling to. Those are the clients that you deal with every day. And you're not a tech geek, so you're actually not going to get into the feature function conversation. So ironically, the fact that I didn't come from that was a positive. And I do see it, even actually this morning, someone within MediaFly was telling me, I love how you're simplifying things. And sometimes I feel like I'm oversimplifying, but I guess I'm the perfect guinea pig. If I don't get it,
right,
the audience is not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's on the background I come from. So I mean, I like that.
Yeah. And what excites you about marketing today?
So really what excites me is the insights part of it. What I see as the shift from, this is about demand gen, right? But the shift from marketing bringing leads and obviously generated pipeline and all that stuff to sales, to more of the marketing bringing insights to sales, both through, and we touched on a little bit, the ABM technology, right? So understanding the market signals and turning that over, as well as the, in our case, sales enablement technology, the insights into the content, right? Yep. And how the content is used, whether it's helping to close, and for sales, it's then really understanding the content engagement, like what's the difference between your top sales reps and your middle and your bottom, right? So, oh, well, we can see that the top ones are using this, this, and this. And this is, we try to replicate that same behavior to the B's and the C's. So for me, this whole insights, like marketing, bringing insights to sales so sales can be more effective, I find very, very interesting.
How about the technology? It seems like you've embraced a lot of the cutting edge stuff.
The technology, I mean, it's, I'm actually not as in love with it as you would think. Like the tech stack, I mean, my God, it's just, it can just blow up. And thank you for saying that. I guess we are cutting edge. I think especially the ABM technology is not that common quite yet. And we've been quite sophisticated with it. So when I talk about that in more detail, people seem pretty impressed. I mean, that's really the biggest thing, I think for us, obviously. Sales automation tools is something that we haven't used yet.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'll need at some point. I don't think it's not a matter if we need it, it's more about when we need it. Like any technology, I feel very strongly that you have to have the people and process first, and then you use technology to scale that. And in some areas, our people and process are not quite there yet for us to justify, layering the technology on top. So I tend to be very conservative. I say no a lot, which might to more tech, which might be a little bit counterintuitive or unusual. In fact, Carson, our CEO, and I often, I feel like it's almost a reverse dynamic. Well, he'll want,
he wants you to buy more?
Platform. Yeah, let's get this platform. I'm like, no. And then I have said to him, I said, this is a little weird. I'm supposed to come to you and say, I need more budget to buy more. And so I move slow when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think that's smart, because you can become way overwhelmed. And if you're spending too much time learning or integrating or adapting technology versus thinking about getting leads and how to do it, it's just wrong. I always thought that'd be a great business of, a marketing agency that would do this for you. Take your ideal persona, use all of this technology.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting. So they're owning, in some ways, like they're owning your tech stack, and they're
it's like
recommending they're owning, and they're.
Yeah, you say you're going after marketing content managers at companies this size and these industries that are in market. Boom. Okay, you want to advertise to them.
I mean, the challenge with agencies is, and I realize that's my background, so it's I have to be nice, because I had a great career on the agency side. But the challenge with agencies for working with startups is everything for us is moving so fast. We have to be super nimble and flexible, and it's very hard for an agency to do that.
Right.
Unless you're, if you're, I don't know, IBM, and you're working with a top tier agency, and you have, you're spending huge amount of dollars in your annual fee, and it's a full-time dedicated team that's really then an extension of your marketing team, then they're like on it, right? But for most companies, that's not the case. And so and they'll never know, I find that companies have unrealistic expectations of their agencies. Like and that's because I've been on both sides, right? I have no expectation that my agency is going to know my business as well as I do. I just don't.
Right. They're looking for a magician, not just an agency.
Yeah. And hell, sometimes we don't even know our own, right? Things that, again, because things are changing so much that I may not even have the full picture on something. And then I call it, garbage in, garbage out, right? And again, I'm digressing a little bit. This is more about client-agency relationships, but usually when an agency delivers poor work, it's because the client didn't brief them properly.
Yeah, cool.
Right? Most clients will blame the agency, but to me, it's sort of like, let's go back and look at the brief.
Right, and at the end, it doesn't matter, right? It's like no one got what they wanted.
Yeah.
So, hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you and follow you?
So LinkedIn is the best place. So Isabel Papoulias is my full name. You can also find us on mediafly.com. And I also encourage you to check out evolvedselling.com. So again, it's evolvedselling.com. That's our thought leadership content hub. A lot of great info on there, and podcasts as well. So these are all the places.